Welcome to the Frustration to Freedom podcast, helping advisors and insurance producers grow their practice. My name is Mike Bemis, Senior Advisor Development Consultant at Simplicity Minneapolis. Got my partner in crime here, Jeremy Karja, also Senior Advisor Development Consultant at Simplicity Minneapolis. Jeremy, I am super excited about our special guest today. We have our founder of Simplicity Minneapolis, Mike Stranka, on the call with us today. I got to give a little shout out here, Mike.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know Mike. Mike, he's also a co-author of the E-Myth for Financial Advisors. He's written many books, best-selling books, Referral King, that if you come on board with Simplicity Minneapolis, you get a copy of that, how to create referrals. The thing that people don't know about Mike Stranka is that, he did 30 million in production for 15 years in a row, all by himself, no downline agents, because of the systems he created. Jeremy, this is the guy that helped coach us. This is our mentor. So one of our main mentors is Mike Stranka. So I'm excited that, Jeremy, we got Dad on the podcast. Let's go.
Okay.
So,
I knew we had to at least hit 20 to show them we're consistent, Mike, and here we are.
At least, right?
Okay.
Awesome. So here we go. So, Mike, I would say this. I would like you to start out with your story. And I know you tell us that coaching a lot, but you had a story. You were successful in the business. You were doing good. You started out with New York Life, and then there was kind of a switch that happened. Something happened in your life where you made a switch to go to the next level. Why don't you kind of tell us that story quick, so get people on the podcast get to know you.
Well, real quick. So when I left New York Life, I created my own company, and I was fairly successful from the jump with that. And I was doing what a lot of people would say would be big numbers, between 10 and 16 million of annuities. And I was doing managed money and a bunch of life insurance. And so on the outside, you would say, wow, this guy's a superstar. And I reread the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And before, when I read it, I thought, I got to give this to all my business owner clients so they can get their act together, so they can write bigger checks to me. And then I reread it like, wow, what if I did this? And then I said, oh my God. When I started analyzing my business, I'd have some months where my commissions were 100 to 200,000, and other months where it was like 15,000. And it was a little schizophrenic. At the end of the year, you would say, okay, the guy did $1.4 million or whatever. That's a big number, but I knew I could do a lot more. And when I analyzed the data, I realized that the times where I had that consistency, I was in front of more people. So I just made a decision. I said, you know what? I'm going to just do it. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it, 4 times a year. I'm going to do it every single month. I'm just going to be in front of people, in front of people, in front of people. And I was doing 2 seminars a month, and then I said, I'm just going to do 4 seminars a month. I'm always going to be in front of people. And when I did that, I went from like 17 million to like 36, 38 million. And I averaged 36 million for the next, 10, 15 years. And then I got to where I could do it instead of 12 days a month, 10 days a month, 8 days a month, 6 days a month, and got it down to where I could do that in about 4 days a month. Now, my company was still operating because, I had almost 800 million under management. So we had to be operational, but I was only in there when it came time to move money.
Love it. Love it, Mike. Well, a lot of people also on this podcast hear you say these big numbers, and in their mind, they're like, there's no way I'll ever get there, Mike. What would you say to those people who are kind of stuck in that 3 to 5 million, maybe 10 million range, but they can't seem to quite get to the 20 million plus range, or at least $1 million a month, or they're inconsistent? What type of advice, tips do you have for them on that?
So those were my numbers, and I haven't been in personal production for 10 years. If I was in business today, I'd be writing 100 million in the same 4 days. And the reason is the opportunity is that much larger. And so back when I was doing it, the Dow was at 15,000. Now it's at close to 50,000, right? So what I would say is, if somebody's stuck at 3 million or 4 million, your benchmark should be $1 million a month, period. And I don't care how you get there, just that you got to get to $1 million a month, period. Because I think if you don't get there soon, you might not be in business. And that may be a little harsh for some people to hear. But, everything's moving rapidly. We have AI that's compressing things. We are in the middle, or actually, we're just at the very beginning of the biggest revolution we're going to see in our collective lifetimes. I'm 64 as of today. It's actually my birthday today. And I can't believe you got
Happy
me
birthday.
working on my birthday.
Mike working on his birthday.
And it's a Friday, which I never work on Fridays. And my birthday, I've worked on my birthday. I don't really care about it. But my point is, we're seeing something change. It's going to change the world. I have 2 or 3 projects going on with some AI guys. It's going to blow people away. Because of that, the opportunities to move large amounts of money. Imagine 50 million white collar, not 50 million, let's say 5 million white collar jobs get wiped out. 5 million. And these are people that are making 200, 300, 500,000 a year plus. And they all have 2 million, 3 million, 5 million in their 401ks. And now they're 50 or 45 and they have the opportunity to roll their money out. Holy smokes. I mean, it's unbelievable. It makes me almost want to go back into personal production, but I don't need to. But anyway,
A lot of opportunity.
huge opportunity.
Mike, I would say you did that, 30, 40 million in production 15 years ago. And, Jeremy and I saw it, we're part of the OGs here at Simplicity Minneapolis. So we saw you working for it 4 days a month, which some people don't believe, but we saw it, right? How important is putting systems in your practice with your appointment process, with your referral process? How did that help you do that?
It's really like everything. I wouldn't even try to do anything without having systems and procedures that you can fall back on because people are not manageable. They're human. They got emotions. They have good days, bad days, but systems are manageable. I know if I do X, I'm going to get Y. I know that. And so if I have a system that I can replicate and I know it's consistent, I know if I did 4 seminars, I would get 24 first appointments. Other 24 first appointments, at least 20 would show. In a really bad month, 18 would show. Of those 18, I'm going to close 1 out of 3. That's 6 people. My average ticket's $1 million. That's $6 million a month. Some of it goes into annuity, some goes into managed money. Boom, and you're there. And it's rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. If I don't have a system, I'm flying by the seat of my pants. If I have a great month, I look back, I don't even know how the hell it happened, And then I'm like, how do I get that to happen again? Well, what did I do? I don't know what I did, But if I know I'm doing these 10 or 15 things all the time and it's going to produce a certain result, then I measure that result. If I have those first appointments and I end up only moving $2 million, something went wrong. What went wrong? Maybe we didn't follow up. Maybe we dropped the ball. Maybe we spent too much time between appointment 1 and 2. Whatever. Maybe there was a weather event. Maybe it snowed really heavy and you couldn't see people for 2 weeks. But if on average, I'm going to get a certain result. My whole thing is, if you do these things, 85 to 90% of the time, you're going to get the result that we tell you you're going to get. And as long as you remain accountable and they check in with guys like you and me, and they say, like if you tell them to do something and you meet with 10 people, you're going to move $6 million. If they meet with 3 people and they haven't moved anything, they should call you. They shouldn't wait till they go through all 10. I went through all 10. I didn't move anything. Well, what the heck? You were doing something wrong. No, I wasn't. Well, if everyone else did this and got this result and you did it and got 0, you're the problem. Because these systems and procedures work whether you're in a big town, a small town, whether they have a big staff, no staff. They just work. And that's why systems and procedures are like integral. You need it. I wouldn't even, why even bother going to the office if I don't have a plan? I had all my seminars, my sales talk was all scripted out, the entire thing. I never deviated. You deviate after you close them, After you close them, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. But you don't mess up the sale by introducing something else. So again, that all goes back to a system and a procedure.
Systems for everything.
Systems for
Everything.
I love that you talked about
Love
the
that.
scripts. I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay to have a script. It's okay to practice that script. I tell my producers that all the
Every
time.
pro has a script. If
Yep.
you see any actor on Broadway or wherever in a movie, they're following a script. They're not ad-libbing it, you know. I mean, maybe a comedian does once in a while, but we're not comedians. I
Yep.
mean, we're talking about the life savings of a couple that have been together for 30 or 40 years, and they're coming to you and they want to entrust you with getting them to the finish line. You know, so we have to be very serious about this. And if I script out everything and I have a system, and just going back to systems and procedures, the income for life, you know, doing the asset summary, doing the agenda, putting together the personal financial inventory binder. These are all there. If I try, even now, if I try to do the sales process and eliminate two of those four, my results are going to be different. They're not going to be as good. I can just tell you they're not going to be as good. They might be really bad. But I know if I follow all four of those, I got a better than average shot of getting at least 1 out of 3 to say yes.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot on the podcast, Mike, on, two things. One, it's a gear system. You can't miss parts of the gear and expect the whole machine to run properly. Try to do all the gears. And that's your system that we're talking about there, is just following each part of the system along the way. One thing I want you to touch on, Mike, one of my top advisors who was stuck at that 3 to 5 million, and he had been to all the top FMOs and coaching programs and bought the DVDs and was part of the in-group, but he still was stuck at that 3 to 5 million for almost 40 years. He comes to you and all of a sudden he jumps up to 30 million a year. And one of the things I said, well, what is the difference between like our coaching with Mike Stranka and all the other programs you had been a part of? Because these other advisors were successful like Mike. And he said, well, really two things. Number one, the system, right? They all claimed to have a system, but nobody truly did. Like Mike, they didn't have all the pieces. Or three things. Number two, the coaching, actually having somebody hold you by the hand and helping you make those little tweaks and changes along the way that you were talking about, Mike. And then number three, the belief. He said, I've never had anyone believe in me like you guys. He even said he carried something you told him when he first met you in his wallet for the next, multiple years, and he would read it. And it was something you talked to him. So I've heard that from numerous advisors over the year. Mike Bemis, I'm sure you have as well, that Mike Stranka said something kind of personal to them and built their beliefs. So what do you do, or what are you seeing in these people? How do these people that are listening to the podcast help build that same belief, or what do you tell them to help pump them up?
That's a good question. I think we all have a burning desire inside to achieve, if we're in this business. And if you can harness that energy and find the right mentor, you have a good shot at achieving that. But it is definitely a mindset because, I remember talking to a guy back in the days when I still did the training in my office building in Maryland. The guy comes up to me, he's like, well, I like what you see, but, I'm like, well, what's your production? He said, 3 million. And because I just said, 3 million, I did 3.2 million yesterday afternoon after the coaching that you were in. I went up to my office and it was in 90 minutes and I ended up writing 4 tickets for like 900,000 each.
I remember that day. I was there that day.
And so my point, I said, what are you doing the other 364 days? So if whatever ability that you have, you can dial it up 5 times, 10 times very easily. When I went to a strategic coach and I told my coach, I want to do X, he said, okay, now you need to create a company that does 350 million. And that's what we created with First Income. Then when I went to see him, he said, now you got to create it where it does 3.5 billion, which we've probably done 3.5 billion since we've been in business. My point is, you can always increase it, but I have to have the right mindset. If I'm stuck in a mindset, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I'm not going to do it. But if I'm around other people and you share, hey, I'm willing to go to any length to get it, provided it's ethical, whatever, and not against my moral values and all that. Guess what? You can find someone and they can help you get to that goal. And I love helping people get to a goal. I mean, I sponsor, co-write with probably 10 or 15 younger guys in all kinds of businesses. And they'll call me up, hey, what do you think I should do? I said, well, I wouldn't do what you're doing. I would do this, but those are guys that are coachable. They're like, what am I doing wrong? And if we're willing to realize that we don't have all the answers, but chances are there's someone out there that does have the answers. I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I got to call my mentors and say, what do I do? Now, great thing now is they have, chat and Claude. I love Claude. You can ask Claude almost everything. It can design so many things. It's unbelievable. And so in one way, the world's going to transform and there's going to be a lot of displacement. But in another way, there's going to be so many millions of new businesses started instantly. And it's going to be really, really exciting. But it's, do I choose to look at this as if I'm a white collar guy, woe is me, it's over, I'm never going to make money again? Or do I say, you know what, let me see what this AI is all about. And then if you're smart, you're going to come up with some ideas. And then you say, wow, I could create a new business. So that goes back to the mindset of the producer, so yeah.
Sounds like what I heard there is find the mentor and be coachable.
Let me tell you, when I went to strategic coach years ago, I had to fly to Toronto 4 times a year, go through customs. It was an all-day meeting. Well, I ended up turning it into a 3-day event because I would fly up a day early, day of the meeting, and then I would come home to my hotel, have a really nice dinner because I stayed at nice hotels, and then I would fly out later the next day. So I actually have 3 days to think about my business. That's very powerful to step out of your business to work on your business. Okay. If I'm in my business, like if I try to do this through Zoom and then Mrs. Jones calls and she's got a problem with something on her account, you end up taking the call. But if I'm out, they say, well, Jeremy's out, Mike's out, we can handle it, but Mike will be back. He's at a coaching session with 100 of the top advisors in the United States. He'll get back to you. That gives you time to be around people, step outside of your business, and then you can find out what's working in other parts of the country. And if I can take something that's working in another part of the country and plug it in my backyard, man, I got a huge advantage.
Love that. And Mike, a lot of these advisors listening, they struggle with 2 things. One, they struggle with, how do I actually do it in my area? Because my area is different. I don't know if seminars work. I don't know if this works. My clients are different. Yep. So is there any advice you can give to them? Have you seen success in all cities across the country with your system?
It doesn't matter where anybody lives, especially anymore. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's opportunity everywhere. And that's just an excuse. My friend used to be a motivational speaker, and he used to put 2 big words up on the stage behind him, reason and excuse. And he's like, I either have an excuse why I can't do something, or I have a reason why I'm going to do it, And so big town, small town, it doesn't matter. You guys remember a guy I had in South Carolina. He literally has sold everybody in his town. And he's like, there's only 893 people, and I have like 800 of them. And the other 93 people are dead or whatever, And I said, well, is there a town nearby where they have like stoplights? And he's like, yes. I said, how far? He said, 20 minutes. I said, go get an office in that town. He did, and was up to 20 some million a year. So, there's something that happens with advisors when you talk to them. They fall into this trap of, I'm terminally unique. You don't understand. I'm different. We're all different. Get over it. But these systems work, big town, small town, doesn't matter. And today with the internet, you could literally be almost anywhere. So anyway, that's it.
And another one they say, Mike, I think you could help a lot of people with is they're at that stuck point where they don't have any staff. They're doing what we call B-tier marketing, which is all the marketing that's very inconsistent. Good to do. You did a lot of B-tier marketing, but you made sure to have 3, at least what we call A-tier marketing, that's more consistent, like your book and seminars and professionals. So how do those people make that leap from I'm a B-tier inconsistent advisor to, hey, I need to jump into A-tier? Because did you always have staff and were you always spending, 40, 50 grand a month?
Staff. I read years ago that, like, let's say I'm making $200,000. The first staff person I hire my income will go up 60%. So what is 60% of 200,000? Anybody got quick math?
That's 120,000.
Yeah.
120.
And I'm not paying 120,000 for that person. Back then I was paying 30,000 for that person. Then I just kept supersizing it, kept doing it. Let me hire an additional person. Let me hire someone else. And so to write 30 million, you really only need 3 people these days. You know, you need someone that can handle the paperwork, generally that's licensed, but maybe they failed out of the business, but they're really good at service. Okay. That would be someone great because they can do the paperwork after you close the deal. And then you need someone to answer the phone and schedule and maybe do some marketing. You know, as you start to ramp up and you do, say, 30 million a year for 3 to 5 years, you might add a 4th person on or a 5th person. I had about 8 people at the end. You know, I had as many as 26 one time, and that was stupid because, you know, I look at the end of the day, I'm the only one selling. And I'm like, why are all these people sitting around looking at me? You know, they should be out doing something, you know. Well, they were service people, you know.
Mike, last question. You know, we have our quarterly coaching every quarter. You're the one that's doing that coaching. Why should they come? I think that you've already answered the question, but just from the horse's mouth, why should they come to our quarterly coaching?
If you want to get better at your craft, if you want to learn more, if you want to be motivated, if you want to sit next to people doing the numbers that you always dreamed of doing, come. If you want to stay stuck, stay home and stay stuck. But if you want to get out of it, get on a plane, come up to, where are we at next? Minneapolis?
Minneapolis next.
Minneapolis. It'll be nice, warm weather, whatever. We'll be near the airport. It's fly in, fly out. I mean, my whole thing is, if I'm in business, there's no way I wouldn't have a coach or a support staff. I mean, there's no way. You'd run it into a ditch. Why run into a ditch? And so think of us as the guardrails, okay? We're the bridge to the mainland. Every advisor is on their own island. We're that bridge that says, hey, man, come over here. Get some provisions before you go back. And then the smart ones keep coming back. And if you notice, in the coaching, there's 100 guys there. The top 20% are always in the first 2 rows. And they're always taking notes.
Yeah, but I think, Jeremy, they only come like once a year, don't they? The top guys?
Yeah, something like that.
Listen,
Or they come every time?
Every single session, unless they're on their deathbed, they are there.
When we first started 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, I used to do it live every month. I had 3 or 4 guys that didn't miss a live thing every month. They would drive down from Philly, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. I mean, and they were always in the front row taking notes. So anyway.
Same session they'd hear every single month for years, and they would still come every single month.
Well, what's interesting is some of the guys said, you know, when I first came, I only took 2 pages of notes, and you just spoke, and I took 8 pages. And I said, that's because your brain is more advanced from when I first met you, because you recognize, because now you're writing 30 million, and you realize you can write 60 million if you just did a couple of things different. And those are those new ideas that you get. And you only get them from being plugged in. It's like anything else. If I take my phone off the charger, eventually it's going to run out of charge. It just will. But if I plug it back in, I'm good to go. Same thing with coaching and advising. So anyway, so get on the plane, come to Minneapolis, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to join, we call it Team Elevate, Mike. Team Elevate. And you want to come join Team Elevate, you can always book a time directly with Jeremy and I. And we're going to coach you on the systems that Mike Stranka taught us. And we're going to help you develop your business to get the level that you want to get to. And we're going to invite you to in-person coaching, live in-person coaching with our founder here, Mike Stranka, where you get to rub elbows with him and all of our other top producers so you can get to the level that you want to get to.
Well, let me just say this. I've known both you guys for 10 years. If anyone's watching this and they don't take you guys up on that strategic advantage, they're idiots. And I mean that in a nice, respectful way. I don't browbeat anybody. But I mean, oh my God, here's guys that have a stable full of guys writing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a month. I know because I've seen the numbers. And so if I'm watching this, I'm like, I want to get to the next level. I'm reaching out to Jeremy today. I'm reaching out to Mike today. and saying, hey, reserve a spot, because we know there's only so many people that we can help,
Yeah.
and of all the people watching this, probably 10 or 20% are the ones that we're looking at. It's the old 80-20 rule still stands. 20% of people do 80% of the work,
Awesome. Well, Mike, we really appreciate the time on your
Thank you.
birthday. Happy birthday.
On a Friday.
On a Friday. Mike,
Shows you how much
I
he
think you
loves
really like
helping
us.
people and likes us.
I like you guys. I respect you. You do great work. So
Appreciate
Thank you,
the time.
Mike.
Team Elevate. Let's go.
let's do
Book
it.
a call. We'll get you in front of Mike.